Which is enough.
So, what's exceptional?
Am I getting certificates for,
You miss us, don't you, Steve?
yes, they passed a certification.
Right.
Okay. Any questions?
It's just the extension.
Okay.
1-year extension. Round 1 pass.
Okay.
They do a lot more curmudgeon-y. Thank you.
Mary Hamlin was just like Judy Dench.
Oh.
You're smiling, Tiffany.
Yeah.
Scruffy. You should do it.
It is.
Thank you.
It's November, isn't it?
Yeah, more
Almost.
Good. I still keep raw beard.
White hair, too young.
Maybe by the time I'm 60.
Yeah, then it'll be.
See, Steve, nothing's changed. Good evening and welcome to the Monomoy Regional School Committee meeting, Thursday, October 24th. I'd like to call the meeting to order at 6:35, almost. The first item on the agenda is to approve the minutes from our October 10th, 2019 meeting. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second?
I'd second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I abstain.
Abstain.
2 abstentions? No opposed. Great, thank you. Next item would be the student representative. Welcome.
Good evening, everybody. Tonight I have an exciting report with all of the latest and greatest happenings in our high school. Our amazing teachers have done some wonderful things within the last few weeks. On September 18th, Mr. H.T. and his wife welcomed a healthy baby boy named Grady. And on September 26th, Mr. Houston spoke at the League of Women Voters due to his recognition as Teacher of the Year by the American Battlefield Trust. Anytime you walk by Mr. Houston's room, you are very likely to hear him enthusiastically preach about democracy and freedom, his infamous mantra, so this was the perfect opportunity for him. And during the second half of September, Monomoy athletes kept busy playing games left and right. Girls soccer had a tough run and lost a handful of games, but special recognition goes to Josie Ganshaw, who dominated the field with 13 saves against Rising Tide on September 24th. And field hockey continues to win game after game, beating Nauset and Sturgis West. During the latter game, Bella McMahon scored her first varsity goal. And boys golf won against St. John Paul 87-78, and unfortunately, boys soccer took a couple of losses. And on September 24th, Sage Barnes, Lily Ryan, Mila Bologna, Joe Cottle, Annabelle Sims, and Shan Holbrook traveled all the way to Boston to listen to the James Otis lecture at Faneuil Hall, where the failures of Reconstruction were discussed and how they are applicable today. And on September 25th, Miss Flint's wildlife conservation class went on a field trip and we got to see a whale watch. We had an awesome time on the boat and then proceeded to make projects about the importance of whale conservation. In the meantime, seniors have been busy having college meetings with their guidance counselors. Schools such as BU, Framingham State, Northeastern, and many more have been coming into guidance to conduct information sessions and to inform us about the application processes. And to open October, field hockey won a game against Barnstable and Martha's Vineyard, with goals scored by Caroline DiGiovanni, Holly Evans, and Jane Howard. And boys soccer won against St. John Paul, with 7 saves and goal by Sean DeVoe. And cross country participated in a meet with Sturgis East, and in an amazing sibling moment, sisters Margot and Courtney Derry took the top spots for the girls. Both boys and girls soccer lost the sandwich, but Josephine Ganshaw again played another amazing game with 14 saves and goal. On October 7th, the Peer Lead students presented the Youth Risk Behavior Survey to parents and families in our community. Students take this survey every 2 years, which relates to the frequency of risky behaviors such as substance abuse and mental health. And in addition to this presentation, Peer Leads also filmed a video that was presented to each class during school. And the Chatham Rotary Club awarded Sam Chase with Student of the Month. He was nominated for showing tremendous growth as a student, leader, friend, and athlete during his time at Monomoy. And Mr. Alexander took our AP Government class to the Barnstable Superior Court, where we got to see a very rare opportunity. The Massachusetts Supreme Judicial Court came to the Cape to listen to 4 appeal cases. We were personally invited by Judge Robert Ruffo, who previously ruled on a case relating to the use of license plate readers on the Sagamore and Bourne bridges. After listening to the appeals, we got to have a Q&A session with the judges and a free pizza luncheon. The field trip was featured in the Cape Cod Times if you'd like to read more about that case. And the creative writing students received a grant from the Friends of Pleasant Bay to go visit Pleasant Bay. They were able to take photos, write, and take in the beautiful view for creative inspiration. Their work will be published in a booklet that you will be able to find in school and town libraries, as well as the Harwich and Chatham town halls. And the Best Buddies students have been opening the Java Shore Cafe, where during JAWSIM, they bring around a cart and serve hot beverages such as tea and coffee. Monomoy field hockey players always seem to be on top. Monomoy alumna Emma Mon, sophomore at Stonehill College, scored a hat trick on her field hockey game. And I have even more sports highlights to report. Field hockey beat Sturgis East 5-0 and qualified for the state tournament. They also won the Cape and Islands Lighthouse Division undefeated. Golf beat Sturgis East 96-79, and girls and boys soccer both won against Cape Tech 8-0 and 2-0 respectively. And seniors got to participate in the Cape Cod Fives Credit for Life Fair. We picked a profession that we may like to have in the future and got a monthly budget accordingly. We learned how to manage this budget by practicing balancing out all of life's costs, many that most of us were very unaware of, ranging from paying rent to furniture to food to education and more. We are all so grateful to have this experience as it taught us how to thrive in a real-world setting. And last week, students got revved up to participate in school's Homecoming Spirit Week. We had themes such as Twin Day, Pink Out for Breast Cancer Awareness, Character Day, and Color Wars. On Wednesday night, the senior and junior girls faced off in an exciting matchup for Powder Puff after the boys put in tons of effort to teach us how to play. The senior girls had a triumphant victory of 12-0, and the seniors won Spirit Week overall based on dressing up the most and our awesome Spirit class video, where our class danced and lip-synced to a mashup made by Liam Mon. And to close homecoming, football lost a hard-fought game to Martha's Vineyard, but we all had fun the following night during the 1920s homecoming dance. And last Friday, MIA student ambassadors Sarah Babb, Maggie Dever, and Andrew Davik participated in a fall huddle in Franklin where they discussed community service and leadership with students all over Massachusetts. And on Tuesday, field hockey had their senior night, while boys soccer is having theirs as we speak. And we also have a financial aid presentation in the auditorium happening right now, where seniors and their parents are learning about the financial aid process and student debt. And finally, the MRHS Theater Company will be opening Done to Death, a murder mystery comedy happening on Thursday, October 14th. Be sure to see our talented actors on the stage. Thank you all for listening to my report. I hope you all have a great night. Happy Halloween, and I'll see you next month.
Good job.
Thank you very much. Could you just state your name? I'm sorry.
Jamie Buffington.
Okay, great. And what was the date of that theater show at the end?
It opens November 14th.
November 14th.
And then
Okay,
it'll be
perfect.
15th and 16th as well.
Okay, great. Thank you. Any questions or?
Great job.
Great. You guys have been busy. Yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Next item on the agenda would be public comment. Is there anyone here to share anything with us? Seeing none, we're going to move on to recognitions for the Leslie University Trauma Certification Program. Dr. Carpenter. Oh, nope, not Dr. Carpenter this time.
Yes.
Good evening. My name's Donna DeRogers. I'm a school psychologist and also an adjunct faculty member at Leslie University. The Leslie Center for Special Education offers a graduate-level certificate program in trauma and learning. The courses focus on the nature of trauma in school-age children, ways to promote non-academic and academic competencies for students who have been impacted by trauma, and the process for building trauma-sensitive environments and putting together and creating trauma-sensitive schools. It's my pleasure to join you tonight to recognize the hard work, dedication, and accomplishments of the Monomoy educators who recently completed this 12-credit certificate program. I had the good fortune to come to know and learn from every one of these individuals as we work together in the courses. They are all committed to the need to educate the whole child and to provide safe, supportive, and welcoming school environments for all students and their families. Congratulations to all of you. And Dr. Carpenter, are you going to...
I get to pass out the diplomas. So first we have, I think Kathy Andrews isn't here, right?
Do you want to go up to the podium? You want to go up to the podium?
Sure. Sherry Armstrong. Sure. Let's see, Nancy Barnett's not here. Leslie Platsford. Aaron Cronin. Sally Duvall. Shayna Grogan. Kristen Hayden. Mary Hemian. Pomp and circumstance. Beth Herbst. Mary Levy. Chrissy Lynn. Jen McGilvin. Miss Oldak. Julia Randall. And Pam Reese, who I don't think's here either. Amanda Rice. Joan Richardson. Laura Weatherup.
And that's it.
All right.
Okay. And I can make sure everybody gets these. All right. Thank you so much.
Sure.
My name is Mary Oldak. I'm the principal of Harwich Elementary School, and I just wanted to say what a pleasure and inspiration it has been to go through this program with all these gifted educators. We have learned so much from each other, and it has informed all of our practices within our schools, from how we provide supports through student support teams, transition within grades, placement within grades, transitions into other schools. And I'm very grateful to Melissa McGuire and her support for this program through Student Services, and to the district for also providing the tuition reimbursement for all of us to go through this program. And there are many more coming behind us. We're just the first cohort to push through. So thank you very much to all of you.
And I'd like to compliment Leslie University for putting together a 12-credit professional development sequence. I think too often professional development ends up being sort of a one-and-done type of thing, and I think to string together a series of courses to go and really develop some true depth in the subject is great. I mean, it's good teaching when we do it as teachers, and it's good for our own professional development, our staff. So thank you.
Thank you, everyone, and I think Joy might be organizing a group picture outside for all of you with your diplomas. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Great work. Great. Okay,
I still have other recognitions.
moving on to more recognition.
Just a few other recognitions. We'd like to thank the Art of Charity for their grant in the amount of $1,950 to cover bus transportation to Logan Airport for the students who are traveling to London over April vacation, and for their grant in the amount of $2,000 to help the 7th grade science trip to Cutty Hunk that dovetails in with the 7th grade reading the book Beyond the Bright Sea. We'd like to thank the Friends of Pleasant Bay for their grant in the amount of $500 to help Lisa Fort Doyle's high school trip to Pleasant Bay, and for their grant in the amount of $1,800 to help support the 5th grade science trip to Muddy Creek. We'd like to thank the Chatham Elementary PTO for their donation of $5,000 towards the Chatham Elementary School Playground Project. And last but not least, we'd like to thank Jack Farrell of the Cape Senior Golf League for donating $2,000 to the Monomoy Regional Middle School Golf Program.
Great, thank you very much, Dr. Carpenter. I think we have cleared the room. Maybe I should have told them the pictures at the end of the meeting. Exactly. More of an audience. Moving on to reports and discussions. First, I am going to ask Mrs. Scott to briefly discuss the FY21 budget discussion issue, something before we open up.
Well, Katie can start walking up. It's very quick. So a couple meetings ago, Tina brought up the conversations with the selectmen, and one of them was a concern or a discussion about the public hearing. And so I was talking about public hearing and that it actually is a public meeting and it's supposed to be a conversation between whoever shows up and us. It's not our meeting per se, but it's for them to hear all of the information and share with us their concerns and their questions. And then I went on to say that I wasn't sure, I couldn't remember if it could be a public meeting or if it was actually an official school committee meeting or not, but then I said, so basically I went all over the place and I forgot part of it, so I went home later that night to pull up the Mass General Law to make sure that I was correct, and I was not correct. So I just wanted to clarify publicly that a public hearing is a public meeting. It is a Mass General Law Section 38N, and it does require a quorum of the school committee for us to hold a public hearing. So I just wanted, because it was part of the discussion, and I didn't want incorrect information to be out there. So if anybody, I did forward the screenshot of the Mass General Law to the committee, but just, it is a public meeting of the school committee. It's just meant for participants to be talking to us, not for us to be talking to them. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mrs. Insernio.
Katie Isernio, Business Manager. So the FY21 budget process has begun, as we mentioned in the timeline that we sent out at the last meeting. In your packets is some information about Chapter 70 and the foundation enrollment and the formula. I think that it's not what I would call light reading, but it's helpful reading, and I've also asked Joy to post this on our website as well for individuals to learn how the whole calculation of foundation enrollment, minimum contribution, and et cetera, comes to be with the state. We've started our meetings with, just to reiterate the process, the superintendent, the director of student services, and the director of curriculum instruction and assessment, and I meet with the principals, and we also meet with the director of technology, facilities director, and the athletic director. sometimes we can't all be at the meetings, but superintendent and I are always there. So we've had our meetings with the technology director, athletic director, and facilities. Principals start next week. So starting the process of gathering information, having conversations about wants, needs, enrollment, et cetera. And so that brings me to the information that's in your packet this evening, which is an update on the 3-year rolling average for how we assess our 2 towns. We assess it a little bit differently with operations and debt is based on the foundation enrollment, and our assessment for transportation is based on the number of Howard kids that are in the district and how many Chatham kids are in the district. Where foundation enrollment are all the kids that we're responsible for, some of whom school choice out of Monomoy. In FY20, the operations and debt was assessed 26.55% towards Chatham and 73.45% Howard. And in FY21, there's a shift in the minimum, the 3-year rolling average with 25.65% for Chatham and an increased 74.35% Howard. And then with the transportation, the assessment will be 25 point, in 2020, the FY20 budget that we have now, it was 25.7% Chatham, 74.3% Howard. In 21, it'll be 25.2 Chatham, 74.8% Howard. So there's a slight shift towards Howard. And also included is, in your packet, is the breakdown with the foundation enrollment and the minimum contribution as was posted on the DESU website July 31st, 2019. And we also included the current enrollment that, I think we put it in your packet last time as well. That will help us with projecting out too with class sizes and all of those decisions and conversations that take place while we're building the budget. So I don't know if anyone has any specific questions, if Dr. Carpenter wants to speak anything more about the trend and the shift. But you know, we're on track where we, as we said we would be. We have a long way to go, and pulling together all of the numbers and seeing where we are will be a process.
So just a couple things. So just the summary on this is when it comes to the operations and debt, there's a 0.9% shift towards Harwich, and transportation a 0.5% shift towards Harwich. So before we get into anything, there's a shift that's going to fiscally happen where the budget impact on Harwich is going to be 0.9%, give or take, higher than just by the shift in enrollment. What Katie's also provided is a little packet that describes the Chapter 70 program and how the whole how that plays out. So at the end of the day, that calculus goes into this minimum required contribution, which is a little bit of a budgetary wild card every year. We would anticipate if enrollment is shifting towards Harwich, that the minimum required contribution, which one of the big factors in it is enrollment, will also shift towards Harwich. But until all of that plays through in the budget cycle, which isn't going to be for a few more months out, we're not going to know what that minimum required contribution shift actually looks like.
Yeah, Ms. Swap. Nan's fine too. Do we get any sort of sense as to what the state's going to do for the minimum contribution, or is it just kind of, this is what's going to happen, and on July 31st, 2020, well after we've already approved our budget, that's when they decide what it's going to be for FY21?
They've done a fairly good job in the last couple of years of
But
setting it earlier on in the budget cycle.
it's not locked in.
It's-
then, or is it?
It's not locked, but I think if you recall, I think it may be going back to our first years of coming together fully as a
Happens
region.
after.
They adjusted the minimum required contribution after town meeting, and the regional superintendents responded back. It's like, okay, that just threw big spanners in the works. It doesn't work very well if we're shifting things that late in the process. So I anticipate that when the governor's numbers come out, that's usually when you'll see what that minimum required contribution. It tends to be fairly stable from that point on in the budget process, but that's not going to happen again for several months.
February-ish?
And then we always put a date, in the assessment of, this is what everything has to be based on, what the minimum contribution was posted by the DESE on a certain date, because we would continually be chasing our own tail, trying to keep shifting that.
Thank you.
Great, any other, Scott?
And then we were, at least in terms of the Harwich Selectmen's calendar, supposed to be at their meeting this past Monday, but we were moved off. We will be doing our initial budget conversations, which again tend to be enrollment conversations with them, and we'll be sharing this, where we see the enrollment and the 3-year rolling average shifting, and that is going to be on November 4th is when they have us. I was told by the town manager when they want us next on their agenda. So we.
Is that Chatham?
And we are in Chatham this coming Monday. Is the annual Chatham budget summit with their selectmen. So this coming Monday, the Chatham Board of Selectmen. The following Monday, the Harwich Board of Selectmen.
And really, at the point we're at now is really gathering information from the principals and from the department heads, pulling all that data together. And then, as you know, throughout the process, there are big things like the health insurance rates get set later on in the process. And so it evolves and morphs, but there's lots of conversation and lots of presentations that'll happen between now and when we do have our public hearing and even beyond.
Right, great, thank you. Any other questions or comments for Katie or Dr. Carpenter regarding the budget? Okay. Moving on, the next item on the agenda is the Harwich Elementary School playground.
So we had there was a planned playground walkthrough with the town manager and myself and Ms. Oldak and Link Cooper, the DPW director for Harwich, and our head of facilities, that just kind of kept growing and growing and growing until there was a small armada of people on the Harwich Elementary School playground this morning, having a discussion about the playground and the future of the playground. So in your packets, I know 2 weeks ago I provided you just a 2-pager that had sort of the status of the Harwich Elementary School playground and some concerns, at least some initial evidence that we were having that there was some deterioration happening that we were seeing this year, particularly when it came to splinter data. That was sort of evidence that it was deteriorating at a rate faster this year than in the past, and that it was really time to look at should we look towards closing the playground. We reached out to the same playground inspector who inspected the playground a year ago, asked her to come back and give us an overview of, are there signs that it has degraded more. And I think a little piece that, if I was just to read a little snippet of her report back to us that we received last night, it says that there's no question that this playground has deteriorated over the past year. I did not expect to see the extent of the new hazards and further deterioration of the hazards noted last year. And, so I don't necessarily want to, belabor the committee going sort of soup to nuts through, I think, what's now 6 pages of a report on, that I put in your packet. We'll actually put it up live online after this meeting, including all the hyperlinks that people can go back to. But I think some of the challenges with the playground is that it was built to last 20 years. Because of some great maintenance on our end, it's lasted 25 years. The challenge that you have with wood that's been held together with metal fasteners after 25 years is those fasteners loosen in the wood, so it's literally slowly falling apart from the wood pieces that are fastened together to wood pieces that are fastened together. The wood itself is starting to fray, and you're seeing increased splinters. Some of them small, some of them can be quite large. That children can get hurt with. There are just aspects the way that the playground was initially designed that they don't do with playgrounds these days. So there are all sorts of little sort of 4-inch off the ground little platforms here and platforms there. That are tripping hazards for kids, and when it comes to playground injuries, it's the falls themselves that are responsible for about 80% of injuries on playgrounds. And then there was this little hazard that I never even realized until Sharon and I were over there at 4 o'clock this afternoon, and there were these kids playing around, and they were, a couple of them were sort of scurrying along pretty quickly across some of the Trex material, but you have some of the chips on top of it, which was like, all of a sudden the kid was stepping on marbles, and he was just like, boom, just lying there at our feet. But it is this. I mean, I think it was, for some there this morning, a very emotional conversation that we were having, because it has been such a sense, a place of joy and a fancy for 2 generations of Harwich families, and also families from elsewhere. Sharon and I were having a nice conversation with a father who was there with his 5-year-old daughter, and I asked her, do you go to Harwich Elementary School? And she's like, no, I go to Ezra Baker. And I'm like, well, do you know Miss Henderson? And the dad was talking about, it's like, they come to Harwich to come to that playground because they think it's just so neat. And he was also rationalizing with me that it's probably time that that we put this one to bed and make way for the next playground. The other thing that I also shared that I've documented in this is the ADA concerns that we have, the Americans with Disability Act. In Massachusetts, the Massachusetts Architectural Access Board actually trumps in our state ADA rules. So there's a higher standard that playgrounds are held to in our state than they are in the rest of the country. So the chips that are the foundation of the Castle of the Clouds actually needed to get upgraded back in 2011. All playgrounds in Massachusetts were required to be accessible by all children. And we have 3 children at Harwich Elementary School who are in wheelchairs, who can't access a single aspect of that playground. And every child should be entitled to have access to the playground, to physically, social, emotionally grow with their peers, not be excluded from play. And I share in this that as a school district, we're liable if someone were to go and say, file on behalf of any of these children a complaint with the Americans for Disabilities Act folks, and we would they would come back with one simple finding. You need to go and fix something, and if we don't fix it, there's a hefty fine, and if they come back, it's a bigger fine, and over those two fines, you would have paid for the cost of putting in these days they do poured rubber as the foundation that a wheelchair can go across, plus it provides that sponginess for falls and doesn't have that sort of chips that you would slide across. So you have those two big issues along with the one sort of hidden one that we know about, which is that all the wood in Castle for the Clouds contains a preservative that companies, lumber manufacturers went away from decades ago, but in 1994, sort of the best preservative they could use was this preservative called chromated copper arsenate, and it's clearly known that has carcinogenic properties and shouldn't be used in playgrounds, and you have this situation that that we really can't sand it, we can't do anything with it. The safest thing to do is to dispose of the structure that's there safely and work towards creating a new structure. So I have a recommendation for the school committee. Basically, what I put in this, I know that last night I sent you all sort of as a working document and added on a recommendation after the walkthrough today, but I've written that the Castle of Clouds has been an amazing resource for families in and visiting the town of Harwich and this region of Cape Cod for 25 years. Between its use during the school day, after school hours, and weekends, and during vacations, the Castle and Clouds is likely the recreational asset in the town that receives the most users in any given year. It's a wooden structure built to last 20 years, and we've seen 2 generations of children enjoy play on it in the 25 years because of the care we've given it. As a wood structure, though, it has a finite lifespan and ultimately needs to be closed to allow for a new playground to take its place. Given that there's a lack of ADA accessibility, there's increased splinter injuries in the data that we have this year over last year, there's a need to protect children from exposure to CCA, and there's a growing number of other safety issues as the playground ages. My recommendation is that we close the Castle of the Clouds effective Monday, October 28th, this coming Monday. We would put out a communication to families that we would be closing it. And one of the reasons why I'm saying Monday as opposed to tonight is I do think that I have a letter that I've kind of worked on that I put in your packets, and the last paragraph of it, kind of gets at that Saturday is supposed to be a beautiful fall day, and I do think it's important that families and kids have the opportunity to go say goodbye to an old friend, and so I do think that we should look towards closing it, but also give. I think there's children of all ages, that have, we have staff that, that grew up on that playground that might want to say goodbye to it, or high school students, and I think we need to kind of allow for that little transition. We have plans that we've been working on, knowing at some point that we'd have to close it, and I think Mary has put in your packets a Harwich Elementary School interim recess plan. So we've been planning for what does recess look like while this is closed, and we'll plan on having a meeting with parents on Tuesday night, not Monday, because of the the Chatham Selectmen's meeting, but see if we can meet with parents on Tuesday night, just to kind of talk to them about the closure, what recess looks like, but also to, to encourage them to get behind fundraising efforts and the CPC application as it moves forward. And my final request to the board on the back page of the packet that I've provided you are 3 motions that I would encourage us to take. One is really sort of your blessing of the closure of the playground, but also a request of the selectmen to take a similar vote that would involve demolition, because you can imagine for us to close and demolish the playground, it's a town asset, so we want to make sure that we have the selectmen's voice in on this as well. The second, while you've heard about the CPC proposal that the PTO and school and other members have been moving forward to build a new playground, I'd encourage you to vote to support that as a committee. And in the last motion that I would recommend that we make, during our playground walk that we had this morning, I would have to say the consensus of the group out there is that it's time to close, and that's both folks that were voicing their opinion on the town side and folks that were voicing their opinion on the school side. And we've had some side discussions with myself and the town manager that the Chatham the Harwich DPW would be able to come in with big equipment to remove the castle of the clouds, but there are going to be some costs that the town would have when it comes to disposal of it, and we want to make sure that we're offsetting that cost. So we do, as a regional school district, we voted 2 years ago to establish a stabilization fund. We put $50,000 into that stabilization fund, and this is a perfectly appropriate use of that stabilization fund. So I would recommend that we take $20,000 from that stabilization fund to earmark for the demolition costs for the playground. And again, this will also, by having the town and school district work cooperatively here, it's going to lower that ultimate CPC ask, because there's a big amount in that CPC ask currently that involves the demolition of the playground. So that would actually be taken care of and off that CPC ask from the get-go. So that's my recommendation.
So I'll
Thank you,
move
Dr.
that the Monomoy Regional School Committee support the superintendent's recommendation to close Castle in the Clouds effectively Monday, October 28th, 2019, and supports the demolition of the playground to make way for a replacement pending the Harwich Selectmen's vote to close and demolish the town-owned asset Castle in the Cloud playground.
Would anyone like to have any questions or discussion for Dr. Carpenter?
Second.
I was trying to do that first,
Oh,
but
I thought we had to do
is there a
that.
second?
Second.
Thank you.
Now you can ask the discussion.
Any questions?
Yes.
Thank you, Tina.
Just for clarification, because I was there this morning, and I understand Saturday wanting to keep it open, but the feeling I got, and people were really concerned and felt like it needed to be shut down that minute. So I guess I need to understand keeping it open, and I understand the emotional piece of it, but is there any danger at all in keeping it open over the weekend?
I would say no more than there was today.
Okay.
I think there's also a realistic thing. It will take us a day or two to secure the fencing. So I got an email from Link this afternoon with a recommended contractor that they work with, because if pending the town voting to close and demolish, they want to make sure that we have some real construction fencing put up around the facility. It'll be about a $2,500 charge to have that put up. But again, to kind of keep people out of it, because one of the things that they were talking about, it's not just removing the structure, but they have to go down and remove all of the all of that fill material. So for a brief period of time, there will actually be a hole that then will have to get filled back in. So it's all part of sort of the whole demo removal process.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure, because everybody walked away thinking this needs to be shut down right now. So I just wanted to make sure.
I also want to be sensitive to the fact, I think we could take a vote to go and close it, and I think, and put up some orange snow fencing tomorrow. And I think there's going to be people that are going to want to go and say goodbye to that playground too. I think it's a realistic thing to just let people who have an emotional attachment to it at least be able to go visit it one last time.
Any other comments, questions?
I just have a comment. I support that. I did have the opportunity to speak with Mary Alduck and also Justin Tavano, who is the chair of the playground committee. And I was actually a senior in high school when this was built. So it was very exciting for me to have that be kind of one of those memorable events that happened when I graduated from Harwich High. So, and then my children have used the playground when they were at Harwich Elementary. So it is emotional to have that, second generation come and use the playground. But after speaking with Justin and Mary, it was clear that, the safety was the first and foremost issue for the kids. And so in order to make sure that they're safe, that not having access to the playground was really important. And one of my biggest questions for Mary was, what happens now? I mean, if we don't have a playground structure, and she, was able to share many options and plan Bs for what is going to happen for that outdoor time, because as an educator, you know that the kids need to get out and move. And so it was really nice to hear that those plans were in place, and she was thinking about that, and strategically planning for the what ifs, and if this came to fruition, that it would be closed. So.
Thank you, Ms. Henderson. And I think I echo Tina as well. I'm just a little hesitant while making the decision that it is at the point where we need to close it, yet we're keeping it open for another 3 days. And I understand having to prepare it to be closed and for safety of the children and the community to not go into the playground. But it just troubles me. It seems conflicting that it's not closing effective tomorrow when we're closing it tonight and we're allowing it to stay open, and if it in fact is a safety hazard. I as a committee member feel a little liable for making the decision to close it, although I 100% support closing it, and I 100% understand the emotional piece and that sense of community that playground brought, but I'm just a little hesitant on closing it, but not until Monday. But I just need to throw that out there. Ms. Scott?
Is there a way then to possibly say, put stakes in the ground with signs that say, we understand people might want to look at it, but we don't recommend playing on it at this time? I mean, I don't know. I know it's a big playground, so they probably require several entry points, but just to help illustrate the point that we recognize that as a dangerous playground at this point, waiting until Monday to officially close it.
I guess my thought on that would be that we're not closing it, so why bring more attention to the problems with it? We've already had a public meeting talking about the problems with it.
True.
We've had a walkthrough. This is our second time talking about it, knowing the urgency to close it and all the ramifications of why we should be closing it. Mm-hmm. You can't just put no trespassing signs up, and if somebody still goes on it, you're still going to be in trouble for that. So I guess that's just where where I sit with just being a little uncomfortable letting it go through Monday, although I understand all the pieces, and I can just picture the kids coming to school tomorrow and being like, oh, our playground's shut all of a sudden. So I understand that too, but safety is my main concern. Mary?
Mary Oldak, principal of Harwich Elementary. A solution could be for us just to not play on the Castle in the Clouds tomorrow and divert the children to the fields, and that would get us through to Monday with the 552 kids who play on it every day at Harwich Elementary. That would be a solution to that.
Madam Chair?
I have 552 kids every day. But I like your glasses half full on that one.
Madam Chair, and I like that compromise. My only concern is Saturday and Sunday, because, and this was said to me this morning, I mean, what if somebody comes this week, I mean, hypothetically, somebody comes this weekend and there's something that happens. I got the impression from everybody there that everybody understood the safety piece. Everybody did. Even the people that were involved in it 27 years ago said they were just as emotional as anybody, but their comments to me was it needs to be shut down. And so I am concerned about keeping it open 3 more days, just for that reason. So I'm just hoping another compromise can be put forward.
Terry?
Just a thought. The news came to us fairly abruptly in the past week or 10 days. We could have been closing this Labor Day weekend. So my feeling would be that the compromise, the staff will help work out tomorrow. We are totally indirect on weekends, and we've had years of weekends where something happened or it didn't. I would suggest that either Mary or Scott write a note that can be stapled to the playground in the clouds saying effective whatever day you want to choose, Saturday or Sunday, that due to safety concerns regarding it has been closed to the public. If they arrive, at least we have some issue covering those. The liability I'm not certain of, but it probably would at least soothe some of our consciences about 2 days. So I think Monday is a reasonable closing. I know the select board may be discussing this Monday night, so they wouldn't be in a position of closing it tomorrow. So I'd be comfortable, unbeknownst to ourselves, we've been living with this for years and not being nervous about it. So I'm comfortable voting to have this motion and also have the staff look out for Friday, tomorrow, and then have a posting there saying effective, choose any date you wish, Saturday, for those who would wander into the playground.
Sure.
I think everybody's brought up really good thoughts. My question is, I understand that we're responsible for making decisions for during the school day. I'm not really quite clear where our responsibility is for the weekend and where the selectmen's is.
I would argue that, that we lease that property, so it's, I mean, it's ours. We maintain it during the school year, so it's on us.
Okay.
So we do have the capability of, putting a temporary fencing around it. Our custodial crew can do that tomorrow. I think a sort of a more formal fencing that you'd have at a construction site, that I doubt that we can make a call tomorrow morning and have it in place in time for Saturday, just in terms of realistic things. But we could, I'm sure, go to Ace Hardware and get the orange fencing and go around and staple it around.
And I'm hearing Terry as well, and I go back to, we're opening it up to not only, we're shutting it down, we're making an announcement that it's shut, but we're also announcing for everyone to, we're indirectly inviting the public to come and spend one last time on the playground, which we know is a hazard, and that, to me, is conflicting. And I keep going back and forth to that, and it's just so hard. It's hard as a school committee member and as a parent and a community member, and I'm not even from Harwich, and you get teary-eyed thinking about this and these kids and these adults that are involved, but I just can't, in my right mind, leave voting that I was going to close the playground on Monday, but get everybody one last whirl, over the weekend, especially when we're openly giving an opportunity for more people to go and say goodbye to the playground. And because we have been speaking about this since Labor Day, people have known that this would probably or most likely be coming to an end, and or the playground itself was going to be coming to an end because we were designing a new playground. And where it's not the school committee's, position to have to worry about how we're going to block it off, and we need to be mindful of that. Safety, again, falls first, and we just need to figure it out. Just another comment from me. Ms. Scott.
I think it would be completely realistic for people to be able to go to the playground and not play on it. It's to go look at it one last time, because playing on it has been deemed unsafe, because we're not suggesting, I guess I look at the take your time to go say your final farewells to a playground is not, so take your final farewells to this playground that's deemed unsafe, but go run around and play on it. So I actually would take it as, like, if I'm taking my kids there, I wouldn't be like, go have fun, kids, enjoy. It's unsafe, but go say goodbye to it. Go run around and see what you can find. I would look at it as, all right, let's go take a look at it one last time. Let's walk around the outsides of it to see it. And therefore, I could see in my mind, I wouldn't want to see it overnight, because I think the kids at Harwich Elementary would come in and just have a complete, whoa. I mean, even though some of them have had conversations about it, I'm sure the littlest ones would not, they would kind of freak them out. So I think that it's completely reasonable to, over the course of the school day, to get the minimal construction fencing to at least wrap around it so that people are aware, and if they haven't been watching these meetings, because we have so many viewers, or reading the newspaper or listening to the selectmen, that there's at least a visual saying, there's something wrong with this, don't go play on it. Come see it, come look at it, but don't play on it, it's not safe. So I would actually advocate for, at some point during the school day, so that Mary and the staff can talk to the kids and say, look, this is what's happening and why. This is going to be happening over the course of the day, so that when you see it, you can go out and look at it, but we're not going to play on it anymore, because remember how Billy and Johnny and Sue all got splinters last week. We don't want that to happen to anybody else. So I would actually advocate to try to find some sort of enclosure to make it so that it's inaccessible, but you could still go see it tomorrow.
Yeah, and I would have no problem if people go see it. It's just
tomorrow.
It's either closing or it's not.
Right.
Is really
Well,
what
closing
the motion is.
closing it tonight,
Right.
and
Closing
wrapping
it
it up and making sure that it's not usable.
Yeah, and
anymore.
I don't think we have any control if people go and visit it, and if they climb underneath that snow
Well,
fence.
I wasn't going to say that. I wasn't going to suggest people climb
But
under
you can
and
take
over
the preventative,
fences,
you can
but-
make the decision and take the preventative measures to avoid any further risk, especially for the kids who are captivated and who we're responsible for, and who the parents are sending to school every day on this, Tina.
Yeah, and I have to look at this also from a public relations lens, and to me, I just have to echo 50 times, Jackie, what you said, because it is a conflicting message. I mean, we've done our due diligence, it needs to be closed, and that was the conversation we had this morning. There was no opposition, and we had 3 Board of Selectmen, so they had a quorum there. There was everybody. No, there was 0 opposition in shutting it down, and I just very strongly feel for myself that it needs to be shut down now. I just think it's conflicting to keep it open over the weekend.
Joe?
Procedurally, I think we have a motion.
We do have an motion.
We have a motion.
Yep.
We have suggested amendments to the motion, and then there are those who oppose those motions. I think we should be moving towards clarifying this and moving to a vote, but perhaps specifying what the amendments that we're considering might be, and then we can vote yes or no, and if the vote for the motion fails, we can then offer an alternative.
Is there a motion to amend?
I don't believe there was a second, was there?
Yes,
Yes, there was.
There was. So can I withdraw that? Or do we
Yes,
have
but
to
you can
vote?
also amend it.
Okay, so I amend my motion to change the date, the effective date of closing the playground to this Thursday evening, October 24th.
Second. So now we're going to vote on the amendment.
Yes, but my only question to that is that we're not going to go out and actually do anything, post signage, close it tonight, so should it technically be Friday morning? I know, Terry, you love me, don't you?
It's a fine point.
It's the nature of my business.
I think the intention is there. We're still
Okay.
in the discussion stage. I would agree with the Thursday evening, Friday morning, effective, and,
You could say effective immediately. As of
Yeah.
immediately
Date.
on October 24th.
I'll be, no matter what, I'll be texting my facilities director and the head or lead custodian at Harwich Elementary School are expecting a text from me after this meeting anyway, so we're good to go either direction.
So Sharon, as the motion reads, effective Thursday, October 24th, 2019.
I think we should say Thursday evening only because they played on it today.
Did they play on it today? I don't think they played on it today, or
That's
did?
our best.
I think if we just put effective Thursday, October 20th, 2019, it was voted on at a school committee meeting,
Okay.
which was
Yeah.
public
Yes.
at
Public
6:30, so I think that's fine
Yes,
as
that's
you've
fine.
amended it. Is there a
That's fine.
second for the amended motion?
I just recommend that the rest of the text, I think, is
Yes.
important for
Yes, that's
us.
fine.
Second.
All in favor?
aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Abstention? One opposed. Motion carries.
No, that's just the
Excuse me.
amendment.
Excuse me, that was the amendment.
So now we're voting on the motion with the amended date.
Any discussion on the motion with the amended date? Notice, Mary?
I just have a clarifying question. Do we need to put in about the fencing in their motion?
No.
No. Okay.
Okay. Now the motion with the amendment of effective Thursday, October 28th, 2019. Excuse me, 24th, 2019. Is there a second?
I would second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? One abstention. Excuse me, one no. Any abstentions? Motion carries.
I think the second still stands.
Was Joanne?
Was
Yeah.
still Joanne? Okay.
But this is what.
There is a second recommended motion for the school committee to support the CPC application for a replacement playground. Would anyone on the committee like to make a motion?
I will make a motion that the Monomoy Regional School Committee supports the CPC application for a replacement playground for Castle in the Clouds and the preschool playground in order to provide a safe and accessible playground for all children, thereby addressing the long-standing ADA accessibility issues and a growing number of safety concerns of Castle in the Clouds, and encourages the Harwich Selectmen to similarly support said CPC application.
I second.
Second.
Discussion?
Discussion? Questions? Joe and then Tina.
Just a quick point, when this is written up, can we take the items in initials and write them out in full, so Community Preservation Committee and so forth, just so that the clarity can be enhanced?
Good point.
Yes, thank you, Joe. Tina?
With these, the CPC application, is it possible, and I don't know if this would be an amended motion, but to put, because one of the things I heard this morning, as I have out in the community, if we support the CPC application, can we put a caveat that says that we will continue to look for grants and other sources of funding, just so it's understood that we're still kind of working on that behind the scenes? Does that make sense? Because that was a concern raised to me by many that were there this morning. So while we support the CPC application, we also want to have a caveat that says, but we will still be looking for grants and other funding sources.
We, as in the school committee, will be?
I guess as, well,
Because I don't believe
Yeah,
we
because
as the
it's
school
the
committee
Harwich,
will be seeking
it's
grants.
not us, but I guess the person, it would be the PTO then, would it? So it would be the PTO who is the one who submitted the application. So that would be my request, is that the Harwich PTO, I guess as the applicant, would be continuing to look for grants and other funding sources.
So is that a motion to amend?
But I have to come up with languaging though, don't I?
Yeah, go ahead, Mrs. Scott.
I'm following the same track with you,
Yep.
is that I think I'm following.
We're
based
right
on-
there, yep.
Since we're not putting in the, so it's not our application.
Exactly,
first of all.
right.
And it's not our projects.
Exactly.
It's the PTO's projects.
Yes.
And therefore, I have hesitation saying that we want to support the application, and we suggest and encourage the selectmen to support the application. And we also want to put in there, we want you to continue fundraising and looking for grants.
Exactly.
So I understand where you're going, and I understand where some of the pushback has been from some Harwich constituents, and I just don't think this is the place to put that. I think our motion is to basically back the application at this point and encourage Harwich to back the application.
And then I would, oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry, Jay.
No, it's okay.
I would agree with Nancy. It's somewhat presumptuous of this committee to signal back to a committee that I've not had personally word one in the form of encouragement, or here's another suggestion. Not that I don't think that they will,
Right.
but I don't really think it belongs in a motion item number 2.
I think the way the school committee responds to further fundraising is exactly what we're doing now by approving to support the CPC application process. And then if and when the PTO continues to do fundraising and needs the board to further support something else, because I would think that their intention is to continue to fundraise to support the playground, that they could come back and we could have a similar motion to, if need be, by the school committee to support something else as well.
Okay, so may I ask a question, and this might just be semantics here, but the Monomoy Regional School Committee supports the CPC application process. Could we stick that word in there? So, but that's just,
Has the application been
done?
written?
it's been submitted.
So it's
Yeah.
it's not in process anymore.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right.
So we have a motion on the floor to accept the motion as read with no amendment. Is there a second?
I would
Yes,
second it.
we had a second from
second it,
Joanne.
yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
I'm going to abstain, just because I just feel like I have to have a little bit more in there, but, so I'm just going to abstain. It's a difficult thing for me to say, but I'm going to have to say that.
One abstention? Motion carries. And there was a third recommendation for a motion for the Monomoy Regional School Committee to support the use of $20,000 from its stabilization fund. Would anyone like to make a motion?
I'll do that.
Sharon?
The Monomoy Regional, I move that the Monomoy Regional School Committee support the use of $20,000 from its stabilization fund to offset demolition costs the town of Harwich will incur in the removal of Castle in the Clouds.
Second?
Second.
Questions? Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you, everybody. That was a tough one to move through, but I appreciate everyone's patience and thoughtfulness on the playground, because it's an important piece for the town of Harwich. It's important for our kids, and never fun to be us sometimes. Carrying on to Building Committee closeout, the final meeting minutes approval. Dawn was here and it presented that at our last meeting. We are looking for a motion to approve the final meeting minutes.
I think we're wondering if we have to read the entire,
Well,
if there's some sort of
Joe, since you brought it up,
trap in this request.
I think it's just to support the closeout. It's more of the motion
I
as
think
presented
that
at the, yes, do you have a motion?
Yes. To accept the Klaus from the Monomoy Regional High School Building Committee.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is that good for you? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
And no discussion.
And no discussion. Discussion?
Joe?
Dr. Carpenter?
I do have 2 diplomas to award regarding this. So 2 of this board served as members of the building committee, and at the final Swan Song Building Committee, I gave out little reminders of their service. So I would like to provide Ms. Scott.
I also thank you.
And Mr. Russell, their thank you gift for service on that building committee. But this is a building that our 2 towns can be quite proud of. And I also shared at that meeting that it's not just the physical structure that we can be proud of. It's everything that goes on inside this building and on our grounds that really make this regional high school shine.
Well, thank you to both of you. Incredible work. Yeah, very proud. So we had a motion. We had the second. I think we voted, so I know we voted, so, but my mistake that we did not have questions and discussions, but we did have a presentation of some beautiful diplomas. Having a night, people. All right, moving on to the Chatham Elementary School playground installation. Would anyone, Katie, okay, we're good. Would anyone like to make a motion?
I'll make that one.
Thank you, Nancy. Ms.
I was
Scott?
going to let the Harwich people make some of the Harwich motions. I move to approve Part 2 of the contract with M.E. O'Brien and Sons for the installation of the CES playground in the amount of $33,624 to be funded by CPC funds, PTO donation, and building use funds. The contract is for the site work and installation of the playground at Chatham Elementary School. And just as a reminder, Chatham Elementary School did receive $295,000 from the Community Preservation Committee, also known as CPC, of the town of Chatham to be put toward the playground improvements. Should I go through all of the additional numbers? So that's the end of my motion.
Is there a second?
I would second it.
Questions or discussion? Concerns?
Joe?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries.
Jackie, just one quick thing.
One quick thing from Dr. Carpenter.
I'd really like to thank Chatham DPW for stepping up and supporting the playground project. In order to do this poured rubber foundation that playgrounds require, you need to put it down on a solid surface. So as they removed the mulch at Chatham Elementary School, and if you haven't noticed lately, we've been having some monsoonal days. They removed the mulch only to basically create a clay mud pit out there that just held water. So they essentially removed the mulch and created a pond, and had to dig deeper below that clay layer. So apparently not all of Cape Cod is sand, and there were several inches of clay that the DPW went and removed and then backfilled in sand and compressed it to create a nice stable future pad for that poured rubber that will go in. But I know they've been putting in a lot of hours, and I do appreciate the cooperation the town has given us on that.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Carpenter. And moving on, there has been discussion, and I'm sorry that Charles is not here tonight, but some questions, and if we could consider a standing second public comment on our school committee agendas. So I felt, because it's been asked of us twice, and some members have asked that we discuss it as well at our meeting, that we have an open discussion at this point regarding how we feel about considering a standing second public comment on school committee agendas, or having it in a different spot on our agendas. We do have the privilege of moving that around. We do have the privilege of having more than one. And I just wanted to hear everyone's thoughts on it, and we don't really get a chance to talk about how our meetings are run, so I would open up for discussion. Terry?
In the light of our chair's swiftness this past September, I think it would be a good idea to take advantage of that, and not that all of us, if we don't, some may not think we have enough time to conduct business, but I see win-win to have a second at the end of the meeting opportunity. I think Charlie made the comment, which made sense, that during our meeting, something came up where one of the members of our audience wanted to clarify or add something to it. There really isn't an opportunity to do that, although I'm sure we'd recognize that person. But to have it formally on I think it follows in the spirit of what we're trying to do this year to increase the transparency, to use a familiar word. So that would be my thought.
Sharon?
I just want to say that I totally agree with what Terry said, that at the beginning of when we have our comment period, that's a time if somebody's got a comment of something that they know is going to come up, or any kind of random thing. But if something comes up during the meeting that they haven't imagined, we have plenty of time to ask questions. I think it would be a nice courtesy to do.
So this is my food for thought. My food for thought is that when we have our meetings, the agendas are posted, and the topics which we will be discussing are on the agenda. So let's say it's our first meeting we've ever had. The general public is able to view that agenda, prepare questions, documents are available. They come, public comment is the beginning of our meeting. They can discuss what it is we are going to be discussing that evening, and have an opportunity to share their opinions with us. That being said, the school committee that's our opportunity as a committee to discuss the topics presented to us. Typically, in my experience, the conversation points that come up are things that we are discussing maybe for the first time and we'll be voting on a second time. So when I think about the open discussion part of the meeting, I think that they have their opportunity to share their thoughts with us, which may help direct where we go in our conversation during our meeting, which may help direct how we feel the community feels moving forward to how we vote the following meeting. And then they have another opportunity after they've heard us speak to rebuttal at the beginning of the next meeting before we actually vote. And I hope I did that in the correct order. So that's how I think of it. My hesitation, and I appreciate the compliment, of swiftly moving the meetings along.
It was a left hand.
It was kind of a backhanded one, but I'll take it. And I really have to, tighten the belt on Dr. Carpenter and the agenda items sometimes. But we have been very fortunate. We've had some light agendas, and they will get heavier as we go. And my worry is, at this point, we have the opportunity to invite comments in the middle of a meeting and to invite someone up to speak. And I definitely think that could get out of control if we use that as our option. So putting another place for public comment, or perhaps having public comment at the end of the meeting after we've all spoken about what we're going to speak of, may enhance the way they respond at the end. I just feel if we have a second public comment, it could incur very long meetings, especially having one at the beginning and at the end. And even if we limit it to 5, thinking of some of the topics that we do discuss, we've all had meetings here till 11 o'clock at night. And that's fine, that's what we're here for, but just wanted to lay that out. Well, Joe hasn't, but he's new, so.
Just wait.
I just wanted to kind of spread out where my head was at. I'm really open to all the comments and ideas. Ms. Scott.
Something that I always keep in mind is that the school committee meeting is our meeting in the public. So it's not a public's meeting. It's our meeting. This is our time to discuss and debate and figure things out and vote. It just happens to be in the public, and we want to hear from the public. It's not that we don't want to know what the public is saying. And I think that having a second public comment period. So let's just, for argument's sake, let's put a second public comment period after the action items at the end of our meeting before we adjourn. I don't think that's the spirit of what people might be looking for, is they actually want to have a public comment period after our discussion items before we vote. But then there's also sometimes, and I'm getting way off my train of thought of track, but there's also the times that we vote in the middle of, like for example, the building committee closeout. It's in the middle of the report and discussion, but we voted on it then. We didn't have the discussion and then go through the rest of the agenda and then vote. So I think what people are trying to accomplish by having this, I think what Charles was looking for was that he'd like to be able to ask questions during the discussion or after the discussion before we vote. And I think that would pull away from the fact that it's our meeting. And I think that it's very telling to say that we have tried very, very hard to never vote the first time something is presented unless it's important and necessary. And so they do have the opportunity to look at our agenda, know that something's on there. Harwich Elementary School playground is on there. It even says potential vote. So people could have come and said, I want to talk about this. And then if not, they can come to the next meeting. Well, this one we had the potential vote. But if there's another conversation on here that we're be pushing off the vote to the next meeting, they have that opportunity to come back and bring their thoughts. And then there's also the fact that they can call any of us because our phone numbers are public and we have emails that they can contact us on. So I think I'll go back to my initial statement of this is a school committee meeting held in the public. It's not a public meeting. Or it's a, yeah. Right. School committee, I won't say the public meeting part. It's a school committee meeting held in the public. And we just want to make sure that we have the time that we're supposed to have to be able to deliberate as a board without having to worry about the people asking questions in the middle.
And I think, to my point, if you're going to take, item 3, building committee cost closeout, was at our last meeting. We had an opportunity for the board to have questions and discussion, which the public would have heard. And then if the public were here tonight, they would have commented on it in the public comment time before we voted on it.
Right.
So that's kind of the cycle I'm looking at. And you can look at it either way. The public comment can go at the beginning, and those are the agenda items in the last meeting, or they can go at the end, and those are the comments for the previous. So that's where I'm at. And Joe, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's a new point, really, but maybe to condense some of what is said. I was thinking of the scenario you outlined where there is a posted agenda, public comments, initial thought on a motion or idea by the committee. Following week, there's further discussion and finally a vote. And also, of course, a meeting preceded by another round of public comment. Well, if you're a citizen with a strong opinion on an issue, you're not a school committee member for the time being. The vote is taken. Well, why should it end there? There's a second public comment on the agenda in which you were going to urge the committee to reconsider its vote. Because, and I'm going to say, and something of which I'm guilty, I've been on different committees, different organizations. I've been a minority sometimes. I've been part of a minority grouping sometimes. Whenever you're a minority, you always believe or hope that if you have one more bite at the apple, one more opportunity to speak on this point, you're going to be able to convince, if not everyone, at least some people, perhaps a substantial number of people, to your own point of view. And you simply want to extend that discussion until the vote goes the way you want it to go because you feel deeply about that issue. And everybody has that at some point or other. In fact, we've had public comments on the issue of Spanish language instruction at the elementary school long after the vote has been taken. I think the second round would simply be too tempting a vehicle for misuse rather than what it might be intended for. And also, just to point out, finally, I'm going to wind it down. In between, when an agenda item comes forward and we discuss it, between one meeting and the next, there's an opportunity to get information.
Yep.
I think the email is obvious. I think my phone number is out there in the public, too. I think that was distributed on a flyer at some point last year. So there's various ways to talk to people, although I will say very few people know that I'm on the school committee. We don't quite have the ratings on Channel 22 as Channel 18 does.
Maybe we should put our
but,
faces on the move screen, Thor.
Let's-
With our phone
let's-
numbers.
Let's not. Let's not.
Perhaps we can consider that at a future meeting.
Leah, next
But we're not,
next meeting, agenda item.
we're not inaccessible by any means. We're a small town, and we're easily reached, and opinions can easily be given. But I don't want to I don't want to create an opportunity for that to be misused in a meeting context. And ultimately, I think I'm taking the long-winded way to agree with what you and Nancy have said.
Terry.
Just my final thoughts. This is not a heart-stopping topic. However, I thought Charles, in my case, Charlie's idea is a good one. And to slightly, and I know it's sort of a semantic word game, but I've always looked at our 24 meetings a year, it's public meeting. And granted, the majority of people here are on the payroll.
Yes.
I thank you for coming.
Pretty much all of them
It's
this
a
morning.
different, no, I said the majority. So whoever comes on evenings on topics, or faithfully comes, I see that as a very good thing, where if in fact the meeting ends, and I can count on one hand the number of phone calls I've received, even though I'm accessible, it just doesn't happen. So the fact is, our communication is usually one way. So for 5 minutes more, I see it as a reasonable thing for 1 year to give it a try, in that at the end of a meeting, the chair would say, any final comments? Now, I never did picture it as item 3. I'm glad I came, because I'll wait till the end. I thought it was just a summary of 2 or 3 parents who are here who might at the end say, gee, I was impressed with that trip to, and make a comment, so that there's more than us saying goodnight. So I don't think it was item 2 or 4, but in fact, I thought it was just a nice way to bring closure to a meeting, because bottom line to me, it is our public meeting. I don't see it as our meeting. It's the public's opportunity twice a month for 10 or 11 months to come here. And some come on specific issues. Some may just come through interest, and I really don't see it as a major deal one way or the other. If we had it, I think it would be a benefit to be able to say that, the opportunity's been expanded. Is it taken advantage of? I don't think so, but it certainly would give those folks an opportunity to comment about something that they heard during the evening.
Dr. Carpenter.
My take would be I think I'm less inclined to suggest you have a second one, and more inclined to, and maybe this gets at what Joe might have been getting at, to have a statement under the current sentence that you have for public comment, that something to the extent that says that the chair will entertain input from from the public during discussed items, which to be perfectly honest, I mean, if you reflect back over the last 6 years, I think we more often than not have done that. I think that I think there have been times that that Charlie or others have been here that had something that they thought might be important for us to hear, or we might have known that there was somebody here that might have some morsel that would be good for the discussion, and we invited them to come up to the mic. And I think that's when people I think maybe most want to speak, and that it gets at informing the vote or the decision the committee's making. I think having it at the end after the votes is kind of like this sort of awkward thing, except for the fact that we do oftentimes wait 2 weeks, but then it's sort of like becomes this bizarre 2 week later non sequitur.
Joanne?
I see it differently than everybody else, which is par for the course, but I think our agenda is incredibly clear. And I've only got 2 years worth of experience, so we're going to have to work on that. I think when there's a hot topic that gets dropped, that's when people want to have their comments heard, and I do agree with, I don't know how you handle that. Last year we did a meeting in Harwich, which really served the purpose well, I thought. And I think we're going to more informal meetings where people can stand up and say what they're thinking. But to get into a second go-round at night, when you've already had first public comments, I think that's redundant in a funny kind of way. Anyway, that's how I see it. With the clear agenda, people know what they're coming in for. They can call, they can ask, they can research. Nothing is new. So I think, I would say, I think the beginning public comment is strong, but other than that, I probably would let the second time around go.
After hearing what Dr. Carpenter said, besides the initial comment, if somebody had something in just a general thing, I would be very for, rather than having it arbitrarily at the very end, I think that if we were doing, like, for instance, a lot of times we'll have the MCAS or we'll have a wellness kind of presentation. Things come up and people have questions about that, and there's no standardization the way we're doing it. We often let people come up. People don't know if they have a question. Somebody in the audience will say, I have a question about that, and sometimes we will say, come on up and ask that from the podium. Other time, but people don't know they could do that. So to me, it is possible for things to get out of hand, but as I see the audience, it's like one time a year maybe something might come up, but I really don't see it being a big problem. So that would just be my 2 cents.
Does anyone have a motion to change what we are doing currently?
So I didn't see where it said vote required, so are we going to put a vote, or is this just discussion?
So this is discussion, but
Okay.
it's our purview. If we want to make a motion and vote on if we'd like to change how our agenda is drawn out tonight, that's fine. It is not something that has to have a week between, and then, because it's much like when we do field trips that are brought to our attention and then we, approve that. So if there's someone on the board who has a motion, that's absolutely welcome.
So I will make a motion because I do support the second comments. And again, I'll just say, coming at this from a public relations lens, I feel that I am a public servant. It's my obligation to listen to the public. So I will put forward a motion that we add a second, and we can call it something different, but a second public comment segment toward the end. I don't really have an attachment to where it's placed, but I am going to make a motion that we consider a second section, comment section.
Second.
Any questions or discussion? So there is a motion and a second on the table. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
No. 3 noes. Abstentions? That was 3 Chatham noes. So motion carries. Perfect. So motion carries. So we will be adding a second public discussion section to the end of our agenda. to try and see how that works. All right, thank you guys. And subcommittee reports.
Oh, so the policy committee met, and tonight is the second review of some policies.
First. Says first reading.
Oh, first reading? Okay. All right, the first reading. And so you all have this in your packet. The first one is animals in school draft. And so the changes to that are recommended are to take out, the principals will notify all staff in the building when there's animals present in the classroom. And the other red things are about if there's a staff member or a student in the school who suffers from allergic reactions to animals, how to remove the animal from the classroom or transportation. So I make a motion that, we have to wait till next time to move this then?
Yes.
Okay. All right, the next,
Do we have any questions or discussion on this policy, Ms. Scott?
I have a question about the part where it has the person having custody and control of the animal will be required to remove the animal. I just have ADA questions about requiring a person with a service animal to be required to leave versus having the person and having the conversation as to which is more appropriate, having the person, and actually it kind of goes both ways. So I can look at it two ways. One, if it's an adult with a service animal and a kid has an allergy, you're kind of calling out both parties in a sense, and you're kind of calling out the person with the service animal and requiring them to leave the situation. I'm not sure that's completely legal. And then the other side, if the student has a service animal and the adults in the classroom, the student's already kind of in a position that they're on the spot with said service animal, and then to call them out again to say you are required to leave this room because there's an allergy in this classroom. I just have questions about the legality of requiring the person, because my understanding is that ADA requires they're allowed to be there, or they have to be there with their service animal.
right. I think this was under the thinking that there'd be a ADA issue either way. But we can take that back to our committee. Is there anything you'd like to say more about it, Melissa?
Bring it on.
We have a final comment on this.
Yes, we have a final public comment section at the end. If you'd like to wait till then.
Only 5 of us will be listening to
I'm not allowed to listen.
The other three.
This was going to be short, right?
Yes.
Melissa McGuire, Director of Student Services. So the spirit of ADA, there's a piece that talks about reasonableness, and this language, a lot of this language was taken from legal exemplars for these policies. So I think, there are 2 groups that you have to attend to. One certainly is an individual who may have a service animal, and what you're going to do is program accordingly to support that individual and make sure that anyone that's around that individual or student is also taken care of. So the piece of the law that we always have to think about is the reasonableness of what we are accommodating. So although you would have a right to have your service animal, the person who may also have another disability, like an allergy, which could be perceived as one, also has a right to be in an environment that's free from harm. So you have to look at it both ways. Mm-hmm. So it does meet the spirit of law, but you would have to then immediately accommodate that student in another classroom, or the other student. You would work, within the school with the principal to be able to accommodate that. So that's kind of the spirit of that.
The spirit is very nicely said, the policy is not. It's just the required to leave, required to remove the animal to a different location. That's where I'm like, So spirit is nice, so I don't know how you put spirit in nicely versus required to leave, but it rubs me the wrong way.
Okay.
I have a lot that rubs me the wrong way, though,
Joe.
so it's all good.
The requirement to leave is temporary. It means you have a service animal, and it's causing harm to another student that you had not anticipated or couldn't anticipate. So now you have a problem. Some students is having some physical, unwanted, and perhaps dangerous, but at the very least inconveniencing reaction, a reaction that would inhibit the student's ability to study and learn. So given that immediate problem, you separate the animal, take the animal away temporarily, and the next step is to come up with a solution to this and solve this. But we don't want to say, well, we have we have a class for an hour. You're having an unanticipated allergic reaction. We're sorry. You will have to sustain that degree of suffering or problem because someone has a right to a service animal. We don't say that someone who is responding badly or is having a bad response, or I don't mean bad in the sense of judgment, but is becoming ill because of an animal. We want to address that immediately by separating it out and then coming back with a plan to figure out how to service the student who needs that service animal and how to prevent another student from having an allergic reaction. We don't say what that will be, but we do say the administrative team can resolve that and should. And whatever will be done would be done on a case-by-case basis. I think this is actually the most considerate and thoughtful approach that can and should be taken to this situation. But what you see about the removing part, it's an immediate response, a temporary one intended to mitigate the trouble or suffering of a student so that ultimately learning can go forward for everybody. That's our purpose, and I think it does say that. I think that's what the a fair meaning of it is.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you. I'm less rubbed the wrong way.
And so the other two, public gifts to schools and advertising in schools, both basically have this one paragraph, short paragraph that is being recommended to insert. No organization affiliated with Monomoy Regional School District who serves anyone under the age of 21 should take support/donations from tobacco, including vape products, alcohol, or marijuana companies. The Code of Ethics of the Association of Funding Professionals includes this. Adhere to the spirit as well as the letter of all applicable laws and regulations.
Questions and discussions on this policy? Seeing nothing? One more?
Well, next time, I guess.
So next time, I guess. So are we going back to the drawing boards on the animal in school, or are we, that's going to be presented for second reading next meeting?
I would think we present it as is, and we can take a motion for or against or amendments, as we do on any item.
Just make sure there were no amendments to that. All right, swiftly moving along. Superintendent's report.
I'll be
Every minute
fast.
counts. Matters.
It's just a reminder to the committee, the 10-year NEASC, which is the New England Association of Schools Accreditation, begins for Monomoy Regional High School on Sunday. There's a kickoff meeting at 1 p.m. in the high school auditorium. I'd encourage the school committee to be present at that, and following that, there is a 2:30 reception. So it's our chance to welcome the visiting committee here, and they will be with us for the next 3 days.
Thank you, Dr. Carpenter. Can we
That
just go
was
back
impressive.
to policies for 1 second? Sharon, are you going to do the public gifts to the schools?
Yes,
Can you do
what
that
I
one?
said was that for both of those, that was the same paragraph that was added to both of those. That was the only difference.
I just needed to clarify that. Perfect. Thank you. Okay, we have a couple action items. First is to approve the Iowa caucus trip proposal from Mr. Dixon at our last meeting. He will be taking a group to the Iowa caucus this year and had presented some details regarding the trip. So he is looking for approval to move forward with that. Is there a motion?
I am happy, very happy to put forward the motion that we approve the Iowa caucus trip proposal as presented by John Dixon last meeting.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I was seconded.
I don't know.
Everybody's jumping all over the second.
Yes.
I just feel
He has
second.
the deepest voice. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. The next item is the CVAC Round 1 adder 1-year extension. We're looking for a motion for the extension of the CVAC Round 1 adder for the FY21 at the continued reduced rate as presented at our last meeting. Excuse me. Is there a motion? Do I hear a motion?
I will move that we, I guess, accept, I think, the CVEC Round 1 adder 1-year extension as presented at the last meeting.
Second.
Do you need any more details on that? Excuse me for one moment. Ms. Scott's giving me the hairy eyeball.
Oh, you're all over the place with my name tonight, aren't you?
I am. Mickey Mouse. Do you have a question?
I'm just wondering
Comments?
if that might be motion-esque.
On the back page.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Is that what she prefers?
I think it's cleaner.
At least specifies what the.
Tina, would you mind amending your motion or withdrawing your motion and then making another motion?
Yes, with the language on the back.
Yes, minus the dear President.
Kukunis. All right, let's see if I can read this. All right, so I will make a motion that we extend the memorandum of agreement for the Round 1 operational administrative adder previously agreed to on or before March 2017. Do I need to read all of this? The adder paid to CVEC for management of the Round 1 projects will continue to be .0025 per kilowatt hour of production. The extension for the memorandum of agreement for the Round 1 operational administrative adder of .0025 is to be for 1 year with the duration extending from July 1, 2020 through June 30, 2021.
Can I point of order and have her maybe say that's her amendment to the motion?
So I am making an amended motion, which I just said.
Second.
So then we vote on the amendment and then.
So we're going to vote on the amended
Motion, which I said, yes.
And was there a second?
Yes.
Sharon, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries.
Now the full motion. Which her initial motion was the CVEC Round 1 additional extension.
Thank you.
Plus all of what she just said as an amendment.
So now, do we have a motion for the full motion?
We're all set. We approve the amendment.
Yeah, I was clear.
Okay.
That's good.
You're good, sorry.
Okay, all right. I might look confused, but I'm good. We've already done the building committee closeout before. We have the presentation of the warrants. Before we leave, I just wanted to do a meeting reminder. For the month of November, we only have 2 meetings scheduled, November 7th and November 21st, and they're actually the 1st and 3rd weeks of November, so just keep that in your calendars and on your brain, because normally we're the opposite of that. And also in December, we only have one meeting scheduled at this time, December 12th. Sometimes during budget season that does change, but that's not going to happen. So, with that in mind, is there a motion to adjourn?
We didn't actually vote on the, we didn't, so we voted on the amendment.
Would you stop?
I can't help it. We voted on the amendment, but we didn't vote on the final motion.
And then I started to, and you told me that.
No, I was saying we had to vote on the
We
final.
need to vote on the final amendment of the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Thank you.
I have
Mr. Terry.
Mr. Terry. Mr. Terry. When the trigger for me a moment ago was December, and I'm just going to urge us through our superintendent to try to get a date for that first one of 3 forums we were talking about.
Oh, yeah.
Before we know it, it's going to be Christmas and the fall opportunity
It's already
for
Halloween.
folks to come out, the 10 of them, the 20, the 40, to talk about budget will be long past. So
Would we like to do that now, or would we like to talk about it at our next meeting on November 7th and maybe come up with some ideas? That sounds great.
Put it on the agenda?
Yep. Do we have a motion to adjourn to
I'll do that
executive
one.
session?
I'll do that one for you. I move to adjourn to executive session pursuant to Master General Law 38, Section 21, to discuss strategy with respect to non-union contracts coming out for adjournment only.
All in favor?
Do we have to do roll
Roll call?
Or executive session?
Thank you. Roll call. I'm off tonight.
Yes.
Aye.
Yes.
Aye.
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 I guess. Meeting adjourned. 8:23.
I'm sorry.